With an imposing brick facade and futuristic glass, the very fabric of Manchester's Whitworth Art Gallery is a thrilling clash of past and present. It's home to a stunning collection from around the world, which signifies the need to embrace and challenge what's gone before. This city's history has impacted the art within these walls to give us an insight into our shared heritage. And we'll see how today's voices are shining a new light on society's issues to shape our collective future. Welcome to Manchester, the beating heart of Northern England and the city where I was born. Its steeliness rests on the foundations of its industrial past, and that's at the centre of one of its cultural jewels, the Whitworth Gallery. I'm Diana Ali, artist, curator and educator. I spent every week here when I was doing my Art Foundation course back in the 90s. It's a nostalgic feeling when I think about how my art career and passion started, and it was here that I thought that maybe one day I could have my work shown in a place like this. For me, the Whitworth is a sanctuary, and it's great to be back. I believe art isn't something to just look at. It can help us make sense of our past and influence our present and future in a way which captures our imagination, stirs our emotions, and unleashes our own creativity. Through pain, struggle, and turmoil comes great art, and through that art, there can be understanding. The Whitworth Gallery was founded in 1889 as a result of a legacy from Sir Joseph Whitworth, one of Britain's greatest mechanical engineers. He revolutionised precision engineering by creating a standardised system for accurately measuring machine parts. He also devised the first universal system of screw threads. The simple things that we take for granted today were pivotal in making parts interchangeable, which they hadn't been before. This paved the way for mass production and was one of the sources of Britain's wealth and power during industrialisation. Seeing machinery in this setting makes them feel like works of art. That's a key part of what they do here, emphasise the dialogue between art and industry so that one can learn from and inspire the other. This city's industrial success would be nothing without the hard work and determination of its people. And they were immortalised by an artist born less than 5 miles from here, the wonderful L.S. Lowry. He translated the lives of those around him in an incredibly relatable way, giving us a window into their world. When I was in my teens, I regularly looked at Lowry's work because it was about Salford, close to where I lived. I was trying to find my feet after coming back from Bangladesh, and it gave me an insight into how this culture lived. It was a new history I was learning. The simplicity and subdued colour of Lowry's paintings allows us to connect. His art is familiar because we recognise the buildings, the everyday working people, preoccupied by the daily struggle, and the chimneys pushing out smoke that began with the Industrial Revolution. All life is here, and I believe Lowry helped to make art more accessible. Nothing is on permanent display inside the gallery, so I wasn't sure if I'd be able to find any of the pieces that used to inspire me years ago. But anyone can ask to see a work of art stored in the archive, and I'm about to be reunited with an old friend. Oh, how lovely to see them again. Oh, really bring back so many memories. Oh, it's been more than 20 years since I last saw them. In the 1990s, I remember thinking this was incredible. I was struck by how the handmade elements of fine art and craft can work together. The inspiration for these pieces actually came from the Whitworth when Brennan Wood saw a historic lace collection here. He took the intricacies of lace and enlarged them by embedding pieces of material into carved wooden channels. He wanted to challenge the narrative of lace being feminine. Years ago, looking at this gave me a direction to create my own artwork. And it really is quite emotional to think back how I felt and how this gallery gave me freedom, imagination and creativity. The textile collection at the Whitworth is world class. It was aimed at inspiring the region's cotton manufacturers. Textiles were always a big draw for me. I used to walk around this gallery with my sketchbook in awe of what I saw. My family are from Bangladesh. I lived there from the ages of 2 until I was 6. When we returned to Manchester, I couldn't speak English, so at school I made my feelings known through art. This gallery allowed me to connect with my memories of Bangladesh. The artwork became a form of voice, a reminder how art could travel, and it gave me reassurance that something familiar could be here in Manchester. Textiles in particular reminded me of the saris, the rugs and furnishings I was surrounded with in Bangladesh, where my grandmother, my aunties and mother would sit around, weave, embroider and make. There's a checkered history to the production of cotton. Until the late 18th century, India was the largest producer of cotton cloth, but mechanisation in Western Europe changed all that. By 1850, Lancashire was flooding the Indian market with cheaper copies of handmade textiles, known as Manchester goods, for enormous profit. These 3 pieces sum up the story and the need for change. This is a palanpur, a hand-printed and painted cotton hanging or bedspread made in India. Whereas this cloth was machine-printed in Manchester in the 1940s for the export market. You can see the similarities in design. The Whitworth South Asian textile holdings grew out the roots of colonialism. They want to redress this by working with artists that confront these issues, such as Raisa Kabir. This work stems from the history of making craft. What I notice in this piece is a deconstruction of colonisation. We can see the map of the South Asian geography as a fact, but what has been carried through is the red from the previous pieces. I see this as representing the bloodshed that occurred during this partition of India. And what makes this more important is that Kabir has used the thread to show the ripping of these cultures and people in a powerful way. The knots in the material demonstrates a strong voice to show the uneasiness of how that history lies on the surface. The Whitworth's impetus to reflect the times we live in now has resulted in a change of policy. All their acquisitions during the past year have been about rebalancing the collection in terms of representation. They want everyone who visits this gallery to experience art that they identify with. And I'm about to see one of their newest arrivals. This stunning portrait is by Sybil Atek, a pioneering Chinese Trinidadian artist and the first to have exhibited at the Royal Academy. The subject is her good friend Althea McNeish, a fellow artist from Trinidad and Tobago who became one of the foremost textile designers in the 1960s. What a celebratory portrait. Althea's face absolutely glows with vibrancy, thanks to Atek's use of bold colours and strong brushstrokes. She used oil and oil sand from South Trinidad to create texture. And I love the way the eyes are piercing and looking at me, and it's so expressive, it makes me feel quite proud that a diverse woman has painted a portrait of another diverse artist. I feel like her face leaps off the canvas. It's like she's in the room with me. Althea McNeish's textiles was inspired by the flora and fauna of her homeland, and she often called her work tropicalised, turning the tiny flowers in the British hedgerow into a tropical exuberance, following her move here in the 1950s. Her symbols are complex, full of energy and playfulness. She would bring life and a liveliness after the post-war fashion and textiles industry. Her unprecedented combinations of patterns and colours made her much in demand by companies like Liberty and Heels. The Whitworth is put an emphasis on the emerging artists of today, alongside work by names that everyone will recognise, such as Turner, Constable and Picasso. Pablo Picasso was known for pushing boundaries, as he honestly observed the struggles of the times he was living in. Incredibly, this etching was created when he was only 23 years old and is his first major work in printmaking. The sense of isolation and despondency is typical of his focus at the end of his blue period, when he was reflecting on the melancholy of life. He depicts a desperate mood, showing ill and outcast characters. What I find amazing is that Picasso didn't have any formal training in printmaking. Yet thanks to his incredible skill, the characters are compelling. An important role of art is to evoke strong feelings and emotions within us, to challenge our beliefs and perceptions, and this piece certainly did that. When I walked into the gallery again, this sculpture reminded me that art should be displayed as a voice and as a welcoming confrontation to the many issues we go through in life. Genesis is not hidden behind glass, and I had to stop myself because she called to me like a mother and I wanted to hug her beautiful body. The physique is strong, the hands are large, and Genesis signifies a sense of protection for me. If we look at the front, back, and everything in between, the sculpture represents all cultures from the Eastern and Western worlds. However, this incredible piece of art by Jacob Epstein attracted considerable controversy when it was first exhibited in 1930 and subsequently toured the country. The features led to shocking and racist reporting in newspapers. The most suitable place for such a statue would be in the entrance to the Chamber of Horrors. I see no latent significance in the figure, only monstrosity and evidence of a violent obsession in the artist with ugliness. Epstein regarded Genesis as one of his masterpieces. He said that ugliness and beauty were just abstract ideas. The fact that this piece was seen as controversial is shocking to me, and what does that say about us? Genesis is a piece of art that makes us confront our beliefs. For me, it's a celebration of all genders, races, and humankind. I love that you never know what you'll come across at the Whitworth. One minute you're looking at a Picasso, and then you turn a corner and there's a homage to the UK's longest running soap, Coronation Street. In the late 1960s and early 70s, Granada TV filmed some of the exteriors in June Street, Salford, as it was representative of northern working-class terraces. But in 1973, the houses and community of June Street were threatened with demolition. Luckily, two photography students, Daniel Meadows and Martin Parr, heard about this and took a series of images of the residents and their pets at home, giving us a window into the tastes and trends of the era. These images provide an incredible social history. Seeing the clothes, fireplaces, ornaments and pictures brings back memories for many of us. June Street was demolished in 1975, so they capture an important moment, and not only for those who lived there. Well, this one's really sweet, with the lady sat around her memories, things that she's collected all her life in her home. I love these pieces because the photographs are real, of real people and the reality at that time. We still had fake wooden wallpaper in our house. My dad always used to say, "Why redecorate? Because this is who we are." The Whitworth has more than 10,000 samples of wallpaper. Not only the highly embossed top-end versions, but the everyday styles that many people had on their walls. From the novelty design of the day to the functional and the flowery. The ethos of the Whitworth is to use art for positive social change, to open up difficult conversations, generate empathy, and actively address what matters most in people's lives today. The next exhibition does this in a very powerful way, as it's about those who have suffered the loss of a baby. In the first display of its kind, Still Parents brings together the Whitworth collection and those who have first-hand experience of losing a baby during pregnancy or soon after birth. The idea came from Lucy Turner, one of the project producers. She lost her baby, Jennifer Rose, through stillbirth in 2016. Lucy found art helpful in processing her own loss and wanted to find a way to share that with others and for them to have their say. By working in partnership with the Manchester branch of SANS, the Stillbirth and Neonatal Death Charity, they connected with families and parents who'd been bereaved. This exhibition is a combination of art the participants have created, such as drawings and ceramics, together with pieces from the Whitworth collection, which tells their stories and expresses their feelings. It's a celebration of their precious babies. This piece by Turner is quite eerie and ghostly. He's almost given the viewer another dimension to what can be seen in the work. It's interesting and thoughtful that this piece was chosen because of a trace of a figure in the foreground, but also a suggestion of a family together at the beach. I love this drawing because of how fragile and delicate it is. The looseness of the charcoal shows vulnerability, but at the same time, a permanent stance of a pregnant woman. It's confrontational, honest, and it's real. The artist Ghislaine Howard has expressed herself, with the belly being prominent and perfectly formed. It captures that moment and the possible immediacy of birth. Is this Callum piece serene or is it painful? Looking at this close-up made me think of the pain we have physically. The pins are hurting and we're feeling the scars of our wounds on the flesh and that of others. From afar, this pain goes away because what we're seeing is a calming, beautiful and hopeful sky. This is why this exhibition is so important. It brought people together who have been through deep pain. The collection made the parents be part of something universal and gave them a sense of belonging. When I look at this image in the room and read the title, Two People, the Lonely Ones, it touches my heart in a different way than it would somewhere else. I completely understand why this piece was chosen. This drawing by Ruth Chester-Lees, who is one of the participants, takes Monk's work and reinterprets it according to her own experience. During a counselling session, Ruth said she felt the woman was standing with her face to the world and being brave. The therapist asked if that was Ruth and her husband Mark, who would be with them. Ruth replied Ada would be there and that it would have been me facing our grief, but all of us. All of us being brave, which is where the title comes from. Ruth said discussing this piece was a turning point in her therapy because it finally made her open up and explore her grief. For Lucy and the other participants, memory boxes are a very personal part of the exhibition.
So this is the object that I chose to have in my memory box. These are Jenny's shoes. They are shoes that I saw in the shop when I was shopping for my son's school shoes. Jenny would have been 2 at the time, and I saw these on the shelf and I just thought if Jenny had survived, then these are the shoes that I would have bought for her.
Lucy, I think it's incredible that you've made such a powerful exhibition from your own personal loss and being able to share that with others and give them that sense of belonging and somewhere to express that.
For me, this is because of Jenny. Without her, none of this would have happened.
The Whitworth displays extend into the surrounding park, which creates opportunities for stunning discoveries. This work by Anya Galaccio explores themes of loss, memory and physical presence in both nature and architecture. This site-specific sculpture stands in place of a tree which had died and was removed. Fascinated by the absence of the tree, Galaccio wanted to bring back a presence of what was lost. She studied the architect's digital scans which had been created of this area when the gallery was renovated, and then used this data to produce a sculpture that is a ghost of the tree, without it being a replica. Wow, it's amazing. Happy to say this is one piece of work we can touch. It's so imposing, but absolutely beautiful. The scale is realistic, but smaller than the trees surrounding it. It's almost like the actual trees are here to protect it, even though it may remain here longer than nature. There's a sense of safety with it being made out of steel because it's so strong. It's outside, it's there, and it's a memory of things gone. As I know from my own experience, Manchester is a city built on migration and labour, particularly in the weaving industry, which not only provided employment for British men and women, but also those from South Asia. These two communities worked side by side at Briarfield Mill in Pendle, Lancashire, from the 1960s until its closure in 2010. This loss of common ground led to them growing apart, even though they lived in close proximity. For the Circle and the Square, American artist Suzanne Lacey and her collaborators worked with the residents, and this culminated in a 3-day performance. Taking inspiration from the Sufi chanting practiced by Pendle's Muslim community and Lancashire's heritage of shape note singing, volunteers were invited to learn these two vocal traditions together. Alongside the singing, former mill workers talked about ethnicity, work, capitalism, and the history of the area. Well, I'm absolutely blown away by this work. This piece makes me think back to when my father came to this country at the age of 12 in the late 1950s. It's emotional because of the way different cultures can bring a closeness to each other through audio language. It reminded me of the struggles so many of us had through migration to make a living, an existence and a home for our families. My father worked in mills, in factories, knowing that his hard work will one day allow us to exist. This visit has convinced me that difficult conversations and issues in our lives from the past, present and future are to be valued. Art can be many things: political, purely visual. It can unpack social, religious, geographical and cultural themes. It's there to enrich us. It reassures me that we can coexist, have a sense of belonging and share our experiences from different paths of life.